There's breaking news coming in right now. Russia has rejected allegations that it is arming Taliban in Afghanistan. Remember last week, General John Nicholson had said that Russia has been acting to undermine US efforts in Afghanistan. And there's breaking news coming in right now that we're telling you from Russia, because Russia has rejected allegations and it said it is not arming Taliban in Afghanistan. Remember just last week, General John Nicholson had said that Russia has been acting to undermine US efforts. Joining me on the program is Mohammad Saleh, my colleague. Saleh, what more details do we have at this point in time?
At this point of time, Jessica, this is a very serious allegation that has been leveled by General John Nicholson, who's heading the US forces in Afghanistan against the insurgency that is presently underway. Now, what he has, of course, said is that there is a clear involvement of Russia in many ways arming the Taliban to carry out several of the attacks that we've seen in recent past. Now, he's also clarified that this involvement of Russia in supporting the Taliban is something which has happened in recent days. It's not something that goes back a very long time, because if you were to remember the history of the Taliban and also Russia, many would actually say that it is almost antithetical that Russia would actually come and supply arms to the Taliban. Because remember, when Russia had invaded Afghanistan in 1979, there were many of the Mujahideen who had been armed by the Americans to fight against Russians, who later went on to join the Taliban in the early 90s in Afghanistan. So it's almost bizarre as to how strange that these two bedfellows could have actually come together. But this is a very serious allegation, considering what's happening in Afghanistan, where continuously we see the US-led NATO forces and also the Afghan forces losing a lot of ground to Taliban. According to some surveys, it's being said that as much as about 70% of the geographical territory of Afghanistan is under some sway of the Taliban, and it is essentially in Kabul and some of the outlying regions around Kabul that the Afghan government has absolute control over. But in the other, hinterlands, it is Taliban which holds the sway in a very big way. So this allegation also comes in at a very interesting time when Russia's relationship with other nations of the West has taken a serious beating, considering what has happened between Russia and Britain over the poisoning of the former Russian spy. So this is an interesting allegation, and Russia has, of course, dismissed it as nothing more than idle gossip.
Right, Saleh, and this does speak volumes of the allegations that are being leveled against Russia. But what is the truth in this?
All right, now, look, General John Nicholson is a four-star military commander of the United States. He's been leading the operations in Afghanistan for a very long time now. The fact of the matter is there is some amount of evidence in terms of the equipment that has now been seized from the Talibani fighters. What the United States is accused is that there may not be direct involvement of Russians, but Russia, along with Tajikistan, had conducted military exercises close to the border with Afghanistan. It is said that Russia had left some of the heavy military equipment that it had brought into Tajikistan near the border, which was then later smuggled into Afghanistan. So the kind of equipment that we are talking about, which is Russian-made, is essentially in the form of night vision goggles, assault rifles, and also a smaller sort of arsenal that has been used by the Taliban fighters in the recent attacks that have been carried out. So there is evidence that actually backs up this claim. And what now needs to be seen, Jessica, is to have the United States takes this forward. Because remember, the United States has been fighting this war since 2001 onwards. And despite 17 years that have come and gone by, they still have not been able to get a grip of the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Right. Thank you, Saleh, for bringing out that news for us. Appreciate it.